Awesome. Hey everyone, welcome to another fabulous Sales Hacker webinar. We have got an amazing discussion set up for y'all today. As always, no surprise. But before we get started, I want to know who you all are. So first off, make sure that your chat is turned to panelists and attendees and drop in there where you are coming from. As you guys all know, I'm coming from finally sunny Fort Worth, Texas. However, that's all about to change. We've been in nonstop monsoons and we're about to keep getting more rain. We've got the amazing Daniel from Proposify here. Where are you coming from again? I know you were saying earlier, Canada. What part?
Halifax, Nova Scotia.
Halifax. There we are. And I'm sure it's beautiful there. It looks like it with the sun shining.
Yep, nice day today.
I love that. I am so happy we've got a few Texans in here. Mickey Mouse Tan, Bob, great to have you here. Carol, excited to see you all. Like I said, this is going to be a heck of an amazing discussion today. And as always, we want to make sure that you are getting the most out of it. So I'm going to do a few housekeeping and I will repeat it again. First and foremost, I know life happens. You're going to have to jump off at one point or another in this call. No worries. You are going to get a recording within 24 hours. So keep an eye on your email. Keep an eye. You'll get it. No worries. As always, you can always find it at saleshacker.com under training and events. Secondly, and most importantly, make sure your chat is turned to panelists and attendees. We're going to be asking questions and doing some polls. And if none of the answers apply to you, drop your responses into the comment section in the chat. We want to be able to have some conversation from that. And thirdly, make sure that you are using our Q&A box. If you look right down there next to raise hand, you're going to see a little Q&A box. Drop your questions in there. We're going to be answering them in real time. And I know many of you are sellers. I recognize a lot of your names, and we're going to have some really good questions. I'm so sure of it. So excited to have you all here. I think we should probably do some intros here real quick, right? My name is Katie Ray. I am the community manager over here at Sales Hacker, and I'm just so stoked to be here. This is going to be a great discussion. Daniel, why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Danny Bear. I'm the VP of Sales at Proposify. We're a proposal management software that helps sales leaders get visibility and control over their closing process. I've been in SaaS for quite a while now. I've done a number of things both on the marketing and the sales side, built some sales processes, implemented sales methodologies, enablement, all these things. So excited to be here to talk about this topic.
Absolutely. We're excited to have you. Now, folks, he has no idea I'm about to ask this question, but as a past seller, Danny, what is your least favorite part of the sales cycle?
I was never good at cold calling. I'm very introverted and I need to plan, and that's the one thing. Like, I was fine if I was on a script, but if I had to go off script, I never enjoyed it. I was part of the job. I had to do it, but I much preferred the discovery, the demos, all that stuff.
I love that. Yeah, my least favorite part was actually doing the research. My favorite part was taking customers out to dinner. So miss those days. But I know for many of you, yeah, we all hate cold calling. Let's face it. You know, even if we say we like it, come on, we all know we hate it. So love that. We can start on some common ground. Like I said, everyone, we have an amazing session for us today. We are talking about proposal secrets that increase close rates by 111%. That's a lot, right? And that's why we're all here. We want to know, what can we do to increase our close rates? Now, we really want to make this a super valuable session for you. So I'm launching a poll right now. Tell us, what is your role? We've got some AEs here. I know we've got some managers. Amazing seeing our sales enablement leaders here. Love having you all here. But we want to make sure that we are talking and providing examples that's going to be so relevant to your role and what you're doing. And this is amazing. We've got people all over the board here. So I'm going to give you just a few more seconds. And just a reminder, make sure your chat's turned to panelists and attendees. Make sure that you're going to be dropping your questions into the Q&A section. And yeah, get excited. It's going to be so much fun. Okay, just a few more seconds here. Okay. So we've got a lot of reps here, a lot of managers. We've got a lot of, wow, yeah, all over the board. But this is awesome. Super exciting, you guys. This is going to be a really, really good session. So today, Proposify is bringing us some awesome content, and we're really going to be talking about proposals. Now, I know for so many of us, especially in the SMB and mid-market space, we may not have to deal with proposals as much. Enterprise, we may deal with it more, and it really just depends on your industry, what you're selling, your sales cycle length, all of that, right? But it's really important for us to remember that we don't really discuss this that much, right? Of course, the number one thing that we talk about as sellers is how do we get leads? What do we do with them? How do we do cold calling? How do we do research? Our discovery call, more research, we do dinners, and then they finally say yes. Our customer / prospect finally says yes, and we don't know what we're supposed to do. And I'm sure some of you feel this way. I know I always felt like this no matter how many deals I did. I never knew what to do. So today we're really going to be talking about how you structure a proposal. What is a proposal? What does this even look like? And how do we make it more successful so that we're not leaving money on the table by losing deals? Now we're going to jump right into our second poll here. Super, super easy. And we're going to be asking you, how many of you actually do proposals? And if you do them, what is it? Is it an order form, an agreement, a contract? Do you not do any proposals? And if you don't do any, or if it's something that's not on here, drop it into the chat because we want to hear from you. So we can really, really make sure that we're talking about what's important for you here. Okay, we'll give it a few more seconds. Danny, this is amazing. It seems like everyone's kind of right across the board here. An investment summary and order forms. That's super interesting, Sydney. One offer, one price. Bob, lucky ducky. Okay, here we'll end it. There you go. So we've got some clear winners. We got a little tie here with the order forms and agreements. I promise this will play into what we're going to talk about later. So enough with me. I will pass this over to Danny, who's going to kind of talk us through what this looks like. Once again, don't forget to drop your questions into the Q&A or chat, and we'll get going.
Absolutely. So what we found, we have a number of customers. We have over 3 million proposals that have been sent through our system. So we get a lot of information around what are the best practices that are happening in the industry and all that stuff for what works really well with proposals and all that and agreements and contracts. What we found is that there's really a black box that's happening in your sales process when we're talking to sales leaders and we ask them questions around like how many proposals are out there right now from your team. A lot of them can't tell us how many, or are your proposals scaring your prospects away? All these different things. There's really a black box that exists in your sales process, and companies are spending a lot of time investing in the front of the funnel, which makes sense. Like you need a lot of leads. You need to build your pipeline. If you don't have your pipeline, you're not going to hit your revenue targets or close any deals. But you don't want it to be where there's any type of drop off as things go through. Like you said, you spend all this time putting effort into a deal, and they're about to say yes. And there's a number of things that reps do and sales ops does and sales management recommends as best practices of what should you do at this stage of the deal that actually put you in a position where you're either at risk or you're not maximizing the value of what a proposal can be. And this typically happens because of the tools that you've put in place at that stage of the sales process. A lot of us are sending out Word documents that are completely editable that could have a ton of mistakes or could come back with changes where you're not really keeping track of that stuff. So A lot of us are using PDFs as well for contracts and proposals, but that realistically is that technology came out in 1993, right? When was the last time you used something from 1993 from a technology perspective? Um, so if basically what we found, there's two key elements that will give you the confidence that you need in this stage of your closing process, as a sales leader or sales ops or sales management. And it's really visibility into what's going out and how customers are reacting to what's going out, and understanding that so that you can maximize your close rates, and also having a certain amount of control over what is getting sent out as well. Because a lot of times we'll talk to sales leaders and will they'll basically tell us that their reps are sending 3 or 4 different versions of proposals, and one might be from 3 years ago, and your pricing has changed 3 times since then. So all of these elements come into place to help you increase your close rate at that last little bit. So what we've done is that we've actually analyzed all the proposals in our database. So we have this awesome report. We've analyzed 2.6 million proposals. We've extracted what the best companies do and what winning proposals include, doesn't include, how they're sent out, all of these different things, to help get a better understanding of how do you put a winning document together to increase your close rate. So that's what we want to talk about today, is things that you can do right now. Once you're off this webinar, you can go and start doing this with your own proposals, and you should see an increase in your win rate.
I love that. I'm very curious. What is one of the key takeaways from this proposal that you were just kind of shocked by? Like, I know we talked about some things that just were like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But what's something that was just like, oh my gosh, I wouldn't have thought about that, or kind of different?
Yeah. So one of the things that we've noticed, so a lot of sales teams will send an order form and call it a proposal, and based on that poll, it looks like a lot of people here are doing this. An order form and a proposal are completely different things. So what we found is, if you look at across all the different documents that were sent in one, a winning proposal has about 7 sections and 11 pages. Your order form, your pricing, your investment page is part of that narrative. But reality is, there's a lot more that goes into a proposal that creates a winning document than just sending out an order form to your prospects.
Interesting. Well, let's talk about that. What does go into the proposal? What do these excellent proposals look like that's going to help us close more deals?
Yeah. So what we found is, for a lot of us, like, we're in SaaS, and I'm assuming that a lot of people here are also in SaaS. A lot of us are selling to committees and not individual buyers. And when you're selling to committees, you have to put your best foot forward, because the document that you send is going to be forwarded around. And I've done this, like, my team has sent me before an order form for a piece of software, and I'm like, okay, what is this? What are we buying? Why is it this much? When I wasn't involved in the buyer process, and it just created a lot of questions that could have been answered, right? So when you think about your proposal, like, nobody would tell marketing that a website is useless, right? And I'm just going to drag something on the screen right now, very quickly. If a website looked like this, whoever's in charge of marketing would get fired, right? Your proposal is essentially your website at the midway point of your deal. There are new people that are getting introduced to the solution. You can use this as a document that essentially collects all the information, all of your discovery that you've done across the account, summarizes it, and explains it to your prospects and the groups that are going to have to see this, so that when they're going into your proposal, it's essentially acting as a personalized website specific for them and their problems. So what we found is it's very effective across all proposals. So 11 pages total, 7 sections. So having a very strong cover page, same way as when you land on the website, something beautiful that comes out, that pops out, having that first impression can really set you apart when somebody's looking at 2 or 3 different proposals for from your competition. A quick executive summary of like all the things that you've heard, how your approach or your solution, the team, the about us section, the deliverables, the actual SOW that you're gonna have, the order form, so your pricing, and then your terms and conditions that typically go to with your order form, and combining all of that stuff into one document, which a lot of companies I know, at least previous companies that I worked at, we had a pitch deck and then we had an order form. But reality is, when you combine it all, you're giving the full information to the buyer committee for them to make a decision, and that increases your close rates.
So we've got these sections. It says 11 pages, about 11 pages. And I know that we've spent some time talking about how this is basically the customized website, right, that everyone's going to be coming to for that company as you're passing around and sharing this information. You know, we want to make it look pretty. Whenever I think of making things look pretty, I think of going to Canva and making it look pretty with some fun logos and colors. Does it matter what I do to make it look pretty? And yeah, I like this question from Chris. Can this all be done via PowerPoint, maybe sent as a PDF? You know, what is that? What do we do to make it look so appealing, and what should we have with it?
Yeah, so you can use whatever tool that you have at your disposal, right? So PowerPoint is better than Word by far, because it allows you to put images, put a bit of design on it. There's a couple things here. So we've surveyed a number of salespeople and customers and buyers and all that stuff, and a lot of people basically the survey came back that a lot of people care about design, and that makes sense if you really think about like what you do on a day-to-day basis. Have you ever downloaded an app on your phone that's just like poorly designed, poor navigation, looks like crap? You're not going to be using that app again and again, and you're not going to be recommending it to people. It's very similar as what I was saying with the websites, right? So design matters from a proposal perspective. The other thing that we found, and this was kind of a surprising stat, is that if your proposals are including images, it increases your close rate by 26%. Right, and it does play into that whole idea of design matters. Like we are like as humans, we respond very well to visuals. So putting some corresponding visuals to the sections of your proposal that explain the text, that add extra value. It doesn't necessarily matter like if you're using graphs or if you're using good imagery and stuff. What matters is that it's well laid out, it looks professional, it adds to the content that you have in there, and that whole design coming together is really what will increase your close rates.
Yeah, well, whenever we're talking about images, and I'm just kind of curious, because this is something I struggle with, even on the marketing side of things, creating these proposals and documents and stuff. What type of images? I know we talk about like bringing value, but like, do charts and graphs count as images, or is it, you know, the standard photos of people working in an office and how happy their life is since they've bought our product, or what does that look like?
It can be both, right? So graphs are visual representations, and again, you're breaking up the text, right? Because like I've received proposals before, and then like they call like the person that sends it to me calls it a proposal, but it doesn't look like a proposal. It looks like a legal contract, right? And I don't know if you've ever received a legal contract. They're not fun to read, right? You don't really get a good grasp of what you're reading. Like you have to go line by line. Like there's nothing appealing there. So it's again, the images don't matter as much as the visual appeal of the document and the design of the document. So images of people on a cover page or whatever, if you're in that kind of business, if it explains what kind of business that you're in, like we have a lot of landscaping customers, right? So landscaping is you can put some awesome visuals there of previous projects and some nice I don't know what I'm saying here. Nice projects on your cover page, um, or put some graphs right around like what kind of, like if you're in SaaS, like what kind of, if you're putting a business case together and here's what we heard, maybe you're summarizing the business case in some charts and graphs and adding a visual element to it. Um, if you're laying that out correctly and you're adding some good white space, you have the proper headings and fonts and logos and color, it again, it makes you stand out in a sea of black and white text pages, right?
Absolutely. And now with everything being so digitally focused, we talk about images. I know one of the sections that we should focus on in our proposal can oftentimes be around social proof.
Hmm.
What can we do with videos? Is that frowned upon? Is that encouraged? If we have, I'm tired of reading all these white papers of like happy customers that the marketing team wrote. I want to hear from them and I want to see, like, do they actually like this product? Is that something acceptable inside of proposals?
Yeah. So there's a couple ways to use proposals or videos in proposals. So we've actually seen an increase in the last year of about a 31% increase in video usage within the proposals. So it does show, again, like you want to put your best foot forward. It does separate you from everyone else. If you are using some sort of proposal management technology, you can usually embed YouTube, Vidyards, all of these different things right inside your proposal. So there's a couple ways we've seen it being used. One is embedding those case study videos right in your proposal, or some sort of marketing video. If you're SaaS, maybe you're going to do a Vidyard of a quick demo, and put it in your executive summary so that anybody that's viewing the proposal that might have not been on the demo has that quick overview of the platform, before they actually go through the full proposal. So that's one usage of videos in proposal. The other thing that we found super effective here, like our own sales team selling, is using Vidyard as in the bottom part of your funnel or of your sales process. We'll typically send like a quick Vidyard in an email saying like, hey, sending you this proposal, screen grab, like here's how you're going to go through it, all these different things. If you can't book a meeting with the right decision makers, I would say that's the second best option, is to send a Vidyard to whoever's going to be signing your document, laying out, explaining like what the proposal is about and how to go through it. Because oftentimes if you just send a document, they'll skip to one page, they'll miss out the context, and that's your opportunity to add that context.
Yeah, we've got a good question. Is a YouTube link enough, or should we customize video every time? So can we use a template of, hey, this is what you're going to get. Don't forget to check out these areas. Or does it need to be incredibly special every single time?
So it depends on the business and like how transactional you are, how much time you can actually dedicate to this. If you're only sending a few proposals a week or a month, then the more customized you can be, the better. Um, like in our own proposals that we'll send to our customers, we have two videos in there. We have our marketing video that explains the product and the quick demo, all these different things. We'll actually have three in there. If we have a specific solution that we're presenting as part of the proposal, we'll have like a video for that specific solution as well, like an integration or something. And as part of our executive summary, we'll embed a Vidyard that talks to the 2 or 3 decision makers we've identified, explaining, hey, here's what we uncovered with your team, here are the problems, here's the ideal solution, here's the business case. and here's how you can run through your proposal, here's the pricing, all these different things, and we'll put that directly in the executive summary. So our own proposals internally have about 2 or 3 videos in it at any given point in time. And then when we look at what our customers are doing, they're doing something similar. If they use Vidyard, they will customize. If they don't use Vidyard, then they'll use stuff like video case studies, or if they're an interior design firm, then they'll go in and show videos of some of the work that they've done in the past.
Well, and just like we kind of use these templated videos, especially if we're incredibly transactional and it's just, you're going to waste more time doing custom videos for every single one. Can our proposals also be templates?
Mm-hmm.
Or do we need to try and whip up new ones every single time?
So with proposals, the more you can template, the better, for a couple reasons. One, I don't know. I honestly never met a sales rep that likes writing a proposal. Right? It's not the most fun thing to do. So if you start from a template that's solid, you can usually either trim it down or add a couple content sections to it very, very quickly without you having to kind of redo something from scratch. The other thing is that if you use templates, I'll come back to that piece around, like, for sales leaders, enablement, sales ops, if you want a bit more control over your closing phase, you want to make sure that the information that's being sent out is accurate and up to date. And templates will help you do that if you leverage them.
We've got another good question. Do you get on a call to describe what you're about to send via email, or you just send what you are just explaining via email? I'm assuming that's kind of what the video is for.
So,
right?
Personally, I prefer getting on a call.
Mm.
I prefer getting on a call, at least with your champion, if you can, with the decision makers. Right?
Yeah.
If you can't get the decision makers on there, at least you're equipping your champion, and you're using that call almost as like a coaching session for them to talk about the proposal internally, and then you can go in and do that Vidyard, send that in an email to the people that are going to be signing afterwards. So it's kind of a 1-2 punch. The way that I've seen it work really well is, like, you do like a proposal draft review meeting. So they know it's not the final proposal, but you do a proposal draft. It's like, okay, we're going to work on this. Like, let's get a meeting together to finalize it before it's sent out to the final decision maker. And then at least you're able to handle objections as they happen. Because one of the things that if you only send a proposal out and you never review it, there's going to be objections that happen as the proposal gets forwarded around and, like, the committee talks about it, and you haven't been on top of that and you don't know what to anticipate. So I would always try to do a proposal review meeting first, and then follow up with a video if you're not able to get in front of the right people.
Yeah. I'm a really big fan. Whenever I was in sales, that was something I really liked, was, hey, almost that mutual action plan, right? Of, I understand what's happening next, you understand what's happening next, we both understand what each of our parts are, and then sending kind of, for me, I always like sending a follow-up email and a video in it if needed, of if it's like super complex or not. That way they can always refer to it. But as we're talking about, Patricia made a good point, collaborating with the prospect and client, confirming mutual agreements, their skin in the game. We talk about getting on a call with them ahead of time, making sure they understand. Can we talk about this proposal journey? When do I suggest we have a proposal? When do I go through all these calls with them? How do I follow up with them? What does that look like?
So the proposal journey, this graph is for proposal, like proposal sent to close or proposal created to close. So I'll come to that one after. But the proposal journey is typically, like, it depends on the type of business you're running. Like, we will typically only send a proposal after we've confirmed the demo, we've confirmed the fit, we've reviewed the right implementation plan with them, so that we've collected all the information that we need in order to put the right solution in front of them. So that's typically when we'll send the proposal. So um, in different businesses, it works different ways. Like I've been at other companies where the proposal was sent a little bit earlier because you had proof of concepts and all these things that happened after the proposal. And that was a longer part of the sales cycle, so you were getting to the proposal earlier. The other thing is if you're in like a really fast-paced business, um, usually the first proposal on the desk wins. Very similarly as like if you're first to demo, your likelihood of winning goes higher. Um, so that's another thing to think about. Like if you're in a highly competitive business and you know that that specific deal you're competing, then how can you get to that proposal a little bit faster? Now, what we found that was very interesting, and these stats like skyrocketed in 2020 because people were at home. For most people, they were working from home. The pace at which proposals move has gone like is incredibly fast now. So typically, um, it takes about an hour or less to be able to create a proposal or go from created to sent. So a lot of companies are having inefficiencies and stuff with their proposals and stuff. But where we saw like some pretty incredible data and insights is about half of proposals are opened within 74 minutes of sending it. So it's happening pretty quickly, right? If you have them in a good spot where they're like very interested in buying, like they're opening up these proposals pretty quickly. 42.5% of proposals are won within the first 24 hours of opening, right? So that stat a couple of years ago was like multiple days. Now it's like there's a big chunk of proposals that are won the day after that or within 24 hours of them opening it. So that tells you how quickly that phase of the closing process happens when you have the right stuff in place and the right documents doing the heavy lifting for you.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Derek asked a really good question, and Dania, I'm assuming she gave a really good response on here. But I'm curious about your ideas on this. Do you find it best to send the proposal first, so when you're presenting with the prospects and you can ask what questions or concerns they have, along with having them look it over and have questions ready for the meeting? I'm curious on where this would fit into the cycle and if it's something that you've seen to be successful.
Yeah. I typically don't like doing that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's also very dependent on like what's your price point and are they going to get sticker shock? Like to me, that's a big thing that you kind of want to avoid is like the sticker shock. So ideally, you talk about pricing early and often. So by the time you're at the proposal stage, there's no concerns around the pricing and the terms and all that stuff. If you are going to send the proposal out before the proposal meeting, I would at least give a call to your champion to be like, hey, here's what I have drafted what for the proposal meeting. What do you think? And get some initial feedback from at least one person that's open to telling you, so that you don't show up if you don't send it to a number of people out of the blue when there could be some concerns.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's important. Well, and it kind of goes back to what type of relationship, what are you selling? How are you selling? What's your deal cycle length as well? Because it's I came from selling enterprise and it was like 9 to 12 month cycles, and I mean, the conversations were never ending. So if I sent them something and it wasn't something we had discussed about, they'd be like, "What on earth is this?" They'd be so shocked. Patricia has a really good question as well. Have you found difficulties with clients or prospects being able to open with video embedded and images size of files? Do you oftentimes see this going into like security or junk mail and like blocking the proposal?
That's a very, very good point. Yes, if you are using PowerPoint, it sends incredibly large files if you're going to put in email or images, and especially if you're embedding videos on there. So that is a concern if you're sending out um, media rich documents, that to make sure that you do convert them to PDF. Unfortunately, PDF, you can't do playable videos in it, so you would have to link out to a video. But at least with PDF, you can compress the file size and all these different things to make the document smaller. Um, uh, um, Ideally, you can send them some sort of link. So if you're using, again, the proposal management software, or if you're using like Google Slides or something like that, you can send them a link. You just want to make sure that the link is like secure to send out, because some spam filters will basically eliminate links if they're not sent from like your domain email, if they're sending a different link that doesn't match your domain email. So if there's ways to configure that stuff, or use something like Outreach, you can usually configure some better links that get around the spam filters.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I totally second making sure it's coming from like the same inbox, or
Mm-hmm.
testing it ahead of time. I think it's really, really important. And your IT team can always help you to figure out ways to maneuver around certain blocks. We have another really good question, and it's about the Sandler approach, encouraging to not even send a proposal. What what are your thoughts around not even having a proposal, and does it kind of depend on the deal that you're working and what that looks like?
Yeah, I think it depends on the deal you're working. Like where Sandler trained, we use some parts of Sandler, not the full Sandler methodology. Um, we found obviously we're going to send proposals because we're a proposal management software. But I've seen other companies as well that are Sandler trained that do use proposals. I think it's whoever your Sandler trainer is, or whatever your how you kind of treat Sandler depends on from company to company. We had a Sandler trainer that told us we shouldn't even demo unless they're ready to buy. And I was like, okay, we're in a highly competitive industry, and the demo is available on our website, so we can't do that. And they argued with me about that. They argued that, oh, we shouldn't even be talking pricing at all unless we have an understanding of their budget. I was like, okay, price transparency is a thing in the industry that I'm in, and it's on everybody's website, so they know the price coming into the conversation. So that's not a tactic that I can use. So again, it depends on how your market is, like how your customers are buying, all these different things. If you're buying by committee, if you're selling to somebody who's buying by committee, it's going to be incredibly difficult for you to not have a proposal, because they're going to require some sort of material to help them make the decision when they're comparing this option or this option. Now, if you're 100% outbound, no competition, you're selling to one user that can make the decision, or a couple people that can make the decision, then you might end up having more of a verbal agreement and then going straight into contracts, and that's okay if it's working for you. But for a lot of us, that's just not realistic on how people buy, when we're getting into buyer committees.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And just like I feel like anything in sales, right? It's all going to be dependent on your industry, and who your customers are, and deal size, and seat size, and transaction versus relationship focus. It's very dependent on that, I believe. Ronald asked a really good question as well. Whenever we talk about details inside of a proposal, do we want more or less? Do we want to be able to show all the add-ons that our software may have?
So you want to make it concise, right? So enough information that they have a good understanding of the solution and no more. So so that goes into like the 11 pages, like all that stuff that we've discussed, right? We were working with a landscaping company recently, and they had they had multiple variations of their proposals, and some reps were sending 4 pages, and their win rates were crazy high, and some reps were sending 80 pages with the assumption of like, well, I know they need this, but they could also buy all of this, so I'm going to put it in front of them, and their close rates were pretty low. And it came down to information overload, right? The proposal should be a summary of your discovery, so only offer the things that you think will help with the solution. That being said, 1 or 2 add-ons as part of your order form at the point of signature can increase your close rate and your deal size, but they have to be very closely related to kind of what you've already put in place. So, for example, we'll put in our own proposals. Let's say we're putting in a deal for 15 seats. We might put an extra line that's an optional, like, hey, click here if you want additional seats at this rate, and choose the quantity above that 15 seats that you want. Like we've seen that as like, oh, I have some choice here. Or we'll present like, hey, you said that you want a custom template, or use one of our own templates. I'm going to put the 2 on there so that you can decide at the point of signature which one that you prefer. So we'll do stuff like that, and that's increased our deal sizes on a few deals. It doesn't work every single time, but it's always nice to see like, hey, you quoted somebody for a $10,000 proposal, and it comes back to you, and it's actually a $13,000 deal because they added a couple things at the end, right? And that's a passive way to increase your revenue.
Yeah, that's definitely a smart little hack. I wouldn't have ever thought of that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we've got about 10, 15-ish minutes left. And I know we still have a lot to cover. But what I'm most curious about right now is, we've talked about what goes in a proposal, how long it should be, how quickly you should get there, how frequently you should be updating your templates, what you do, just kind of set the stage for that. Little tips and tricks on how to be more successful with it, whether you're using videos or images. But what I'm curious about is, what are some warnings or red flags or traps that we may be falling into whenever we're doing our templates that could actually, be more harmful than beneficial for us?
Mm-hmm. So there's one that we saw that I was surprised. At least I was surprised at first. So let me ask you this, Katie. Um, have you ever gotten really excited when people open up your proposals multiple times?
Absolutely. Because that means they love it, right?
Yeah. So what we found is very interesting. So the average proposal, like the proposals that win, get opened on average 2.5 times, so less than 3 times. The proposals that lose get open on average 3.5 times, so above 4 times. So that is a very clear signal at the end of your sales cycle that if your proposal is getting open too frequently, there's a problem, and you need to get ahead of it. And some of the stuff were like things that questions that were asked around, like, should I send a proposal out without reviewing it first? If you have like surprises around pricing, like, are they looking at it? The more they look at it, and the more time they spend in a specific section of your proposal, it signals that something is wrong, right? Something's not quite right, and they're not willing to commit to it. So when you do that and you put in the stats around, like, hey, from open to close, usually like around half of the prospects will sign a deal within 24 hours. So if you're looking at those stats, it's like, okay, 3 days have gone by, proposal was open 10 times. There's something incredibly wrong with your deal, and you need to call people and start asking what the objections are, and like, okay, what, and like, why is this not signed yet, and get ahead of that. So that was a very surprising stat that we saw, because like most of us get excited and we're like, oh my God, this got opened 10 times. It must be really interested.
What's a good way to go about this? Because I actually just saw in a group that I'm in with a bunch of sellers, and someone was like, I saw this person that opened up my email 16 times but told me that they weren't interested, and he was going to email the prospect back saying, hey, look, I actually use this tool called Outreach and it shows this. And
Yeah.
I was like, I feel like that's a horrible way to handle that. What's a better way to say, if you're seeing, oh my gosh, they've clicked on it 5 or 6 times, but it's not being signed when it's supposed to. What are some ways that we could go in and kind of follow up of like, hey, are you still interested? What's happening?
Yeah. So depending on what you're using, like if you're using Outreach, you can at least see, okay, are they opening? Are they clicking if you're sending a proposal link, right? So that's a certain level of information that you can have. Unless you're selling Outreach, or SalesLoft selling SalesLoft, or whoever else, you probably don't want to take a screen grab of your metrics and be like, holy shit, I've seen all of this stuff, because that's just creepy. Unless you're selling that solution, then you're just saying like, hey, look, this is what we can do. You can get this too, right? And that works sometimes if you're selling that kind of solution. What I found the best approach is like pick up the phone, call your champion, and ask a presumptive question. So like, hey, what questions did your decision maker have about the proposal, right? What concerns do you have about the pricing? And just start asking like very specific questions straight on the phone. It's the easiest way to get to the problem. If you're picking up the phone and asking those presumptive types of questions, so anybody that's Sandler trained here would know what those types of questions are.
That's I whenever I saw that, I was like, ooh, I don't like this. I would not do that.
But
But yeah, but calling and saying, hey, what's going on? What questions do you have? I know last time we talked, this was important. Is it still important? And kind of reselling the value, I think, is always important. And as we look at some of the red flags in how we build our proposals, does it matter what type of verbiage that we use?
yeah, so words are powerful, right? One of the things that we've seen is, especially when um, you're looking at how you're talking about money, um, what you want to do is talk about it from in terms of investment, and not pricing or fees. Like if you have fees on your proposals, you're like, you're putting yourself at risk, right? So I would go change that to investment right away. Like that's an easy thing that any ops or enablement or sales leader here today can go into the proposal template and just change that language very, very quickly.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I've got to find a post, but I swore I just saw something on LinkedIn about this and thought it was so interesting. The changes of just certain little vocab that you wouldn't really think
Hmm.
about, but apparently it has it can really negatively or positively affect how your deal, continues. So, we've talked so much about what goes into a proposal, how long it should be, what are the sections, what we should have in it, whether it be images, videos, some red flags and some traps we could fall into. Um, Literally everything in regards to proposals. So, how do I do this? What do I do if I don't have this tech? Because let's face it, many times we're stuck in companies that don't even have a CRM, and we're just using Excel and just doing the best we can. So, what do I need to do to try and get better at this?
Yeah, the first thing that I would do is at least move away from a Word document, right? Because that's going to be the most boring piece of proposal that you can put together, essentially. Cool thing with a lot of like Google Slides and PowerPoint, you can change the dimensions on those to make it look like a document if you are using a document format, right? So even doing that will help you just that much more because he can use templates, add in some designs, put your logos at the top. Even just doing that, just a little bit of color throughout and good spacing, some good headings, nice fonts, like that kind of stuff will help you just from a visual perspective. Now, if you're like me, probably not that great at design, so you might want to get somebody who is good at design to kind of look at what you're doing first if you're going to put a basic template together, or ideally somebody in your marketing team can give you the go ahead or something. But that is the first thing that I would do. The next thing that I would do is I would at least try to figure out a way to move them online. Like, you can do so much more with interactive stuff online than sending a PowerPoint or a PDF. I would at least look at Google Slides to be able to do a little bit more interactive stuff on there. And then if you're lucky, or your sales leader or your marketing leader cares about stuff like this and they want to put a proposal solution in place for you. But that being said, there's a few free proposal solutions out on the market right now that can help you do this stuff as an individual contributor, where you can sign up and essentially get a leg up on your competition.
Well, tell me about them.
So one of them is Proposify free. So we've created the most robust free proposal software out there. This is a new initiative that we've launched. It's different than what's out there. It's more than just your e-signatures and all that stuff. You can use your content libraries. You can set up templates. You can essentially have a robust feature set that you would see with other proposal software. It's not the full feature set that we sell at Proposify, but is a pretty good solution for if you are an individual contributor and you're looking for that way to, host your templates and make it look in a way that stands out. You're now able to do this for free.
That's awesome. I did put the link into the chat. Forgive my spell check. But I did update that and put that in there. Okay, so I know we've only got a few more minutes. And everyone that's been on a webinar with me knows I always love to ask, what are 1 to 2 key takeaways? If I forget everything that I learned today, what is 1 or 2 things that I should remember?
Design matters. If not, websites wouldn't exist, apps wouldn't exist, people wouldn't care about visual stuff. And then pay attention to your metrics and how your proposals are moving. Use those alerts on whatever whatever tool you use for tracking. You want to make sure that you're paying attention to how fast things are moving from proposal to close, and how often people are opening up your proposals, because that's your secret to basically being able to pick up the phone at the right time and making sure your deals don't stall at the end.
I love that. Yeah, I think that's an amazing takeaway. Ronald used a good one. Be careful of content load, not using Word docs. This is amazing. Well, I don't know about y'all, but I learned so much already. And of course, now every time I use my outreach and I check to see everyone clicking and looking at things, I'll pick up the phone instead of sending follow-up emails just to make sure. Well, Danny, we really appreciate you. This was an amazing session. I know we learned so much. We had some really good questions. Once again, everyone, the recording will be emailed out to you within 24 hours, so keep an eye out for that. But from the team at Sales Hacker, thank you, Danny. Thank you, Proposify. And we hope you all have an amazing rest of your week and a great weekend. And we'll see you next week.
Awesome. Thanks, Katie.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.